from your breaking news and weather authority on Fox Rochester. This is 13 Wham News at 10.
Months of calls for change. Now frustrated nurses at Rochester General Hospital will vote on a strike tomorrow.
The nurses in the hospital are trying their very best to give the care that they deserve, that their family members deserve, that their neighbors deserve, because this is our community too.
The clock is ticking for nurses at Rochester General Hospital and its management to come to an agreement before nurses vote whether to strike tomorrow. Good evening, I'm Matt Malloy. This all comes as nurses express frustrations and concerns over things like staffing, wages, and conditions they say are compromising care for patients. 13 Wham's Carla Rogner caught up with union leaders outside of their negotiations this evening. Carla, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Matt. Negotiations were still going on tonight between the union and hospital leaders. I was told they still couldn't reach an agreement on staffing, which right now is their biggest concern. So the union plans to move forward by voting on whether to strike.
I don't think management has realized how upset nurses are and that we stand together.
Jillian Kingsley plans to vote yes on a strike.
Our number one priority is staffing, and we want to be able to give safe care, to give very good care to our patients, and we can't do that when our nurses are taking care of 10 patients apiece.
The labor and delivery nurse at Rochester General Hospital says staffing issues has led to times where she's had to tell patients they cannot come in for their scheduled medical inductions.
That's awful. It's awful to know that you're compromising somebody's safety to because we just don't have enough staff, and we're sending out text messages and phone calls and begging nurses to come in, but you can only work so many hours in a day and so many hours in a week, and it feels awful.
For months, RGH nurses have been demanding change. In a statement, RGH leaders say they're willing to stay at the bargaining table to avoid a strike and limit an impact to patients. We asked Rochester Mayor Malik Evans about the imminent strike vote.
Obviously, the nurses are on the front line of everything that we do in the medical field. I mean, they are there. They are some of the people who you see the most. So obviously that would have a major impact on the hospital and on the broader community. So I hope to learn more about this, but I hope that they can reach a amicable decision on this.
Assembly member Josh Jensen says many of the issues RGH is facing are being discussed at the legislative level.
So I think the biggest thing right now as a state we need to do is help to support the nurse staffing pipeline, ensuring that we have more nurses going into that career field and really embracing ideas like the Interstate Nurse Licensure Compact that would allow nurses from certain states to come in and start practicing in New York without having to go through the additional licensing process of our state.
Nurses are expected to vote yes on the strike, but it can still be avoided.
Whether or not we actually go out on strike would be up to management in terms of if they can come back with some proposals that meet what our objectives and our goals, then we wouldn't actually have to strike, but that's in management's court.
And this strike would include about 900 nurses at Rochester General Hospital. Voting will go through 9 o'clock tomorrow night, and we'll keep you updated on the results. Though, again, I'm told it is highly likely that it will go through.
Governor Hochul is issuing some executive orders to address the growing housing crisis throughout the state. Just yesterday, the governor introduced a series of plans that would increase supply and create affordable housing. And CBS 6's Ashley Dagger reports now from our Albany bureau after the legislature failed to reach an agreement on housing this legislative session.
Governor Kathy Hochul said that too much time will be wasted if we wait till next session. Although the executive order was met with plenty of mixed reviews. And lawmakers and advocates I spoke with say issues with the economy and with tenant rights need to be addressed. From Buffalo, the capital region, and to the city, an executive action announced Tuesday by New York Governor Kathy Hochul hopes to help address the housing crisis.
New Yorkers need houses built now. And we're going to start driving down the cost because guess what? It is basic supply and demand. You build more housing, the prices drop.
In January, Governor Hochul announced a housing plan to create 800,000 new housing units over the next decade. It failed through the state legislature.
I actually commend the governor. Something needs to be done in regards to the housing shortage for individuals of all incomes.
The housing issue was a setback for the governor This just seems more like an effort to save face rather than a substantive policy plan.
Met with mixed reviews, the executive action introduces $650 million for housing projects, which could even include state-owned sites such as vacant prisons for potential housing. This all will be monitored through a public dashboard showing challenges and growth.
This is a process that does not infringe on local governments' rights. It basically is a call out to the local governments who are willing to be partners in solving the housing challenges to step forward.
Assemblymember John McDonald says the governor is trying to break through the gridlock and there needs to be solutions. On the other hand, Assemblymember Chris Tegg says those solutions need to be addressed with the economy, crime, jobs, overtaxations, and regulations on small businesses.
As leaders in the state, we need to look at what the real cause of the housing crisis is.
Many, though, are still looking for other solutions in the housing package and addressing issues with the affordable housing now, like with tenant rights.
Our governor needs to understand we need help. So instead of worrying about building new homes, how about we fix the ones we have? Because right now, you've got people in this building, and I can tell you of at least 60 who don't want to be here because of what's going on.
Good Cause Housing Access and Voucher Program and others that tenant advocates claim would support those in affordable housing and all tenants now have not been passed.
Really anything that helps a tenant, we can't get. We have gotten it before, but this governor is against it and instead, aligned with real estate and the interests of real estate over the interests of the people that make this city run, being tenants and labor.
A part of this executive order, the commissioner will be releasing criteria defining what a pro-housing community is. Those housing communities will then have to sign resolutions, essentially binding them by contract, by law, on how they will take the next steps on supporting more housing.
All right, thanks for the break, Steve. New York City Mayor Eric Adams announcing today new measures to combat the migrant crisis. But it's a step the city took last night that is raising more questions and getting under people's skin right here in the capital region.
Yeah, we first reported yesterday that the Super 8 hotel in Rotterdam kicked out its guests in the morning, later discovering this was to make room for asylum seekers. Well, several buses arrived just before midnight, and now everyone involved, from the residents to officials to the immigrants themselves, are asking what's next. CBS 6's Tom Eschen continues our coverage tonight. He's live in Rotterdam. Tom?
Thank you, Liz. A day after we saw people leaving today, a lot of security. There's people staying there, and actually the hotel is cordoned off from most of the public at this time. But today I also got a chance to talk to some of the individuals that are now staying there, that got here last night into Rotterdam. They just arrived in the United States earlier this week. The phone continues to ring at the Super 8 Hotel in Rotterdam. We hope to ask when the deal was done to remove prior residents and house immigrants. And we're not the only ones asking.
They rent all of our things to maintain our children, lead a future for our children. Nino, yeah. Baby. Yeah.
I spoke with a few of these individuals for about 15 minutes today. They're from Peru, Colombia, Venezuela. They tell me they hope the move will provide them with some stabilization and it'll put them in position to provide for their children, some of which are here too. They got to the States earlier this week, bused from Queens and Manhattan last night.
This is wrong that New York City is carrying the weight of a national problem.
New York City received $1 billion in the budget to address the migrant crisis. Today, Eric Adams saying 90,000 people have arrived in New York as immigrants. He sent hundreds of people to the capital region over the past few months. Right now, a Colony hotel is being fined every day as the migrants sent there have stayed beyond the town's 28-day maximum stay law.
In an ideal world, we're clear. Asylum seekers would be sheltered throughout the country with expedited work authorization and proper support. That's not the ideal world that we're living in.
Tuesday wasn't ideal either, as guests at the Super 8 were removed to make room for the migrants.
This is just not right. To see these individuals just literally thrown out on the street. They are dealing with a number of issues, trying to get back on their feet themselves.
Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara says the lack of concern for the community is unforgivable, and now is calling on the state attorney general to investigate the legality of the move by New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Let's look into were these evictions legal? Were there contracts in place that were simply ignored for the welfare of these individuals? I'm asking her to find justice for these individuals that are now left to fend for themselves. It's just not right in so many ways.
Clive Vanell is an assemblyman from Queens who says they're at maximum capacity. Is it time now to see how some of this has been handled by New York City for either the legislature or the governor to step in and say, no, we need to have a bit more of a say in this process?
We're there. We're there now.
Today, Mayor Adams called on the federal government to take action at the border. Congressman Mark Molinaro did the same.
Mayor Adams did ask President Biden to take action to bring more federal resources to the city of New York to contain their challenge within the city, and was met with deafening silence.
The silence is now what the local officials and the county and the town level are saying that they're receiving from the city. Not much communication at all at this point. Town and county officials weren't made available today for interviews either. But at the same time, I just found out a Rotterdam town board meeting, a special meeting at that, is now going to be scheduled for Monday at 7 p.m. Reporting live here from Rotterdam, Tom Eschen, CBS 6 News.
So, Tom, the question is, what now for these migrants? Do some of them have employment or prospects for employment?
You know, it's funny, when I was speaking with them earlier today, their eyes lit up when I mentioned jobs and used the Spanish word for that, as, of course, the communication is also an issue for when they're here. Some of them did say they do have jobs locked up, which is one of the reasons why they're here. They had a lot of questions, too, though, Greg, asking about where to find some clothes and what stores to go to around here. So a lot of the things that they need, and there's quite a few of them, are still up in the air at this point. And the hope is a lot of the local organizations around here will chip in to help them out, too. So back to you guys in the studio.
That is the hope. Thank you very much, Tom. Tom Eschen reporting live for us tonight from Rotterdam. Liz.
Well, today, New York Congressman Mark Molinaro announced an update on a bill that addresses migrant housing. It would prevent the use of schools as migrant shelters.
The Schools Not Shelter Act is the response to what is not coordinated, what is not communicated, what is chaotic, and what I'd offer to you is simply not compassionate to the individuals coming to this country seeking shelter, whether they are processed yet or not for asylum. These are individuals that haven't gone through that entire process. But sadly, they are being transported. By the way, by just about every layer of government.
Molinaro, a freshman Republican from Dutchess County, wrote the bill. It advanced to the House floor today, and if it's approved, it would only prohibit the use of housing migrants. It would not prohibit the use of a school as a shelter in the event of a natural disaster.